is the Business Playbook.
Welcome to the Business Playbook. Thank you everyone for coming along. On the comment section of the last live podcast we done, I got a comment that said that the intro was so long and boring. So I'm going to try and fly through it. The Business Playbook is delivered by Alleyoop, we're a PPC marketing agency specialising in Google Ads. We are sponsored tonight by A1 SEO, putting you at the top of Google, and Clear Sky Logic, who are the special ops team for software delivery. We're also want to say a special thanks to the Montpellier Group for giving us this amazing venue and also for giving us a hotel room tonight. Who's decided that you're going to be staying?
We're going to toss a coin later.
If you've not already, David Withers' podcast is on our YouTube channel. Go back once you've watched Kirsty's podcast. Kirsty, we are huge believers here in the Business Playbook that everyone is winging it. But you are a male-dominated industry. You've got a team of 55. You've been in business 10 years this year. You have done work, it's a scaffolding business, and you've done work on Edinburgh Castle, Gleneagles Townhouse, Butte House, Stirling Castle. You've turned over £15 million in the last 3 years.
We have.
Are you winging it?
I work in scaffolding and I'm 5'3.5" and a blonde. I'm definitely winging it.
Brilliant. So we're going to start right back at the very beginning. So we're going to go your kind of pre-city access life. So talking about your previous businesses, but right back to the very start, you told me that you were raised by your grandma and papa.
Yes.
And your grandma was in business.
Yes, she was.
Can you tell us a bit about that?
So my mum was a single mum and my grandparents had a real influence, obviously, on my life. And my grandma worked in the bank and then she had a dream of opening up a guest house. And her and my papa, at the age of 50, started their own business. And that business went on for 25 years. And she was a kind of fiercely independent, really strong, feisty lady. And I've got a lot of those traits.
So you said that one of the things that she was big on was financial independence and kind of drilling that into you.
I think that she was always financially independent. She had 2 children by kind of the age of, I think it was about 21, 22, and she was orphaned by 17. So in that generation, there was no kind of very limited benefits. There was multiple jobs. If there wasn't enough money for the electrics, the lights went out. And if you were hungry, it was 2 bowls of porridge. Mm-hmm. So the idea for my grandma was that she always had to stand on her own 2 feet. So that's what she wanted for me. It was just really important that I was to be educated. I was the first person in my family to go to uni. Yep. And for her, it was just, she needed me to just stand on my own 2 feet.
You were telling me about you were educated previously. You went to Heriot's eventually. Can you talk a bit about your education and how that came about?
So I was born in Granton Crescent, and lived there up until I was 7. Went to Granton Primary School, and then we moved to Craigentinney, my mum and I obviously went to Craigentinney Primary School. And then when I was in P6, my grandma wanted me to go to George Heriot's. So went to George Heriot's. I didn't really have a choice, to be honest, and went to school. And I was the kind of like the council kid, girl that went to the private school. And then I kind of felt like I didn't really fit in the council estate.
No man's land in between the two, right?
Very much so. So I went, kind of remember my distinctive sort of memory is I went in P6 and I showed everyone my holiday photos and everyone in the class laughed and I didn't know what they were laughing at. And then that kind of, I was there for...
Why was that? Was that because of where you went on holiday or what you done for your...
Footies.
Because you said footies.
Because I said footies.
I thought you meant like you had like a horrible wee caravan or something like that. You know what I mean?
I think I'd been to a horrible wee caravan, cool. I think I'd been to Haggerston Castle, and then I showed my footies and showed everyone, and everyone laughed. And then I started to, at that point, probably didn't realise I was adapting to the situation, but I started to kind of mould myself into what people kind of wanted me to be. But then where we went with that is that I didn't really fit in. I felt like I didn't really fit in. That's not what I was told later on, is that actually I was very much part of it, but I felt like I didn't fit in. And I've often feel like that. I always feel like I'm on the periphery of everything.
Well, in the industry that you're in now as well, like that must be...
Just every element in life, I always feel kind of like I'm on the outskirts sort of looking in, but that's how I choose to be.
Mm-hmm. You tell me about your grandma who ran her own business.
Yep.
And you used to like watch her running her business, like dropping a business card everywhere she went, counting cash at night, and like that gave you a real thirst for business, is that?
Yeah, my grandma, I shared this with Jak, my grandma had a massive safe in like this little like cupboard in our guest house, and at night she would obviously get deposits and things, but I just remember vividly my grandma, because she worked in the bank, she would count cash really fast, so I just remember the smell of money and literally her counting loads of cash, and I was in awe of her. It was just incredible just to see it in action, and she was really bossy. She sort of directed my papa quite a bit, and yeah, Jonny's looking at me. So
did you want to be in business like that when you were like at a young age? Did you?
No, I don't think I maybe didn't think that I wanted. She told me that I was to be a lawyer. Really? That's what she told me, that because I think for her she just wanted me to be. Have a title of something, just because they'd never been to uni, and she just wanted more for me than what maybe she had.
But you went into teaching?
I did a social sciences degree, which is psychology, sociology and economics, and funnily enough I actually went to do it for the psychology part, and I'd left school. I moved schools in S5. I went to Leith Academy. I just was a really miserable time. So I moved schools and actually managed to sort of get some hires over like S5 and S6. So went and did social sciences, but I loved the economics part of it. So probably looking back, I actually did like discussing the economy, money, and just looking at maybe the patterns. I don't know, but I did my social sciences degree, and then I kind of was a wee bit lost for a little while, and then I did my 1-year PGD course to become a school teacher, and then did that, worked at Broomhouse and did that for 8 years.
And you said that working at Broomhouse and working with the kids at Broomhouse has had a big impact on what you're now doing with apprentices and stuff, but we'll come on to that when we get on to City. But there's a couple of businesses we need to discuss first. So, Red Carpet Couture.
Yep.
Can you tell us about it?
So we're jumping, sort of, that was actually after teaching.
So you're a teacher for 8 years,
yep.
And then you had your 2 kids while you were teaching?
Yes.
Right, okay. And then
Red Carpet. And
first business, Red Carpet Couture.
First business was Red Carpet Couture. So I basically seen a business in the West, and they were online, and they were basically buying dresses from China and getting them in, and they had like a porta cabin, and I just thought, I could do this. So I got in touch, got a connection from China, and had lots of dresses sent over, and it really started to get some traction and do well. Yep. Got like lots of people booking appointments, but at that point the girls were really young. So Francesca, I think, was kind of 3-4 months. So doing that with a newborn and then a 4-year-old was quite a lot of responsibility. Mm-hmm. But I put that on myself. Yep. Jonny worked offshore at the time, so he would also be away for 2 weeks at a time, and I'd be with the girls. So I was juggling a lot. But the stress of that, what happens when you're dealing with maybe not the most reliable supplier in China, is that you request a size 8 dress with blue sequins, and what arrives is a size 18 red dress. Mm-hmm. And when you've got an event that's coming up on a Friday and the dress arrives 2 days before, it's not great customer service.
No, of course. And then when I met you years ago, you were running Treacle Boutique.
Yes.
So was that you sold the social media pages for Red Carpet Couture when you kind of stepped away from that business? Yep. You managed to like sell on the social media pages, and then launched Treacle Boutique. Yes,
so my sister and I we actually launched Treacle Boutique together. So created a website. It was an online boutique, and then my sister had another business. So we both applied to go into eSpark together, and we were successful. And then when we got into eSpark, we then parted ways. peacefully. And
she's here tonight.
She is. She's come.
She's here supporting.
So Entrepreneurial Spark, that was like probably where I learned so much, but at the time I maybe didn't understand how much I learned.
Yep.
So Chico Boutique was an online boutique, so lots of children's gifts, but I wanted to be on Not in the High Street, so the platform that a lot of you will use for gifts.
Yep.
And it was really, really hard to get on Not in the High Street at that time, so I kept applying. And I created, there was an event that actually Mandy from RBS was attending, and it was a Meet the Buyer event, and she was showcasing her products, Plant and Grow at the time. And I think she told me about the event and that there was obviously people from Not in the High Street there. Yep. So I made up a box and I just went to the event and I just turned up and showed them everything that I had, and then I managed to get on Not in the High Street, and that was not long before Christmas. And it actually done incredibly well, but I couldn't keep up with it. Yeah. So I had people kind of making personalised children's capes. I had tutus coming from China, little rucksacks and things. So yeah, it was a fun time, and the kids were really involved in that. So they would come, fill up bags with parcels, and I'd take them to the post office, and we would be packing up things together. So they've always been...
How old were they at that time?
At that time, sort of 2, 3, and then Francesca would be 2 or 3, and then Sophia would be 5 or 6 at that point.
Cool. You mentioned Mandy. Mandy's here tonight. And you met Mandy through Entrepreneurial Spark.
Entrepreneurial Spark.
And Mandy now runs the RBS and kind of supports loads of businesses through the Accelerator programme. We have one of those businesses as well, so it all kind of goes full circle. Chico Boutique then evolves into Mini Me Dolls.
Yes.
Mini Me Dolly.
Yep.
Mini Me Dolly. Can you tell us about how did that transition come, and what drove that move to the new business? So
there's if you've got a little girl, you might know of the American Doll, and it's in America. It's everywhere, but it's dolls that kind of look like the person, and you can customize them. Yes, you can customize them and buy them the little things, and it's like huge in America, absolutely huge. So obviously my girls at that age weren't really interested in that, and they're also not very tactile. They're like quite hard. So I had an idea to create something just for younger kids where it was like really soft. The dolls would have the same color of hair. They would have an age-specific tutu, but then the dolly would have a wee tutu as well.
Yep, so they could dress like the doll.
So I was in eSpark, and then they used to create opportunities where you would all come together. All the businesses would come together, and it was a great environment because I'm naturally quite a competitive person and bounce off other people that are working hard. So when other people are like really driving their business forward, that just helped me drive my business forward. So there was an opportunity where I think it was like the Herald or I think it was the Herald had come in, and there was a journalist, and I just got up in the middle of maybe a room of 200-300 people and asked to be featured on the back page, and he said yes.
Oh, really?
So yeah, I just kind of put myself out there.
We're going to come to that, because you talk about like how you put yourself out, you knock doors, you ask people for help.
Yep.
Everyone all the way through. So we're going to come on to that. And obviously you mentioned like the network that you built through Entrepreneurial Spark, and that's when I was speaking to you before, and I mentioned the RBS Accelerator program, and would urge anybody who is young in young in their business journey, to get involved in that, because it's an amazing community of people, really, really supportive. And when you surround yourself with other people that are going through the same kind of problems every day as you, struggles every day, or the successes, you can then kind of bounce off that.
Well, you learn from other people's, not mistakes, but any hurdles that they've had, but it is an accelerator program because it's just, everything is just so fast paced. It was actually, when I look back, it was a very stressful time in my life, but it was really good fun as well.
At that time, Jonny's working offshore.
Yep.
And he was a scaffolder offshore. He's in the room. I'm going to keep checking every time you say it. I'm going to just check that he's nodding along and make sure that he's...
Well, they'll tell you.
We were thinking we were maybe going to do a podcast with Jonny and Mark after to get the real story.
Oh, yeah.
Right. But let's go to the kind of fast forward to the start of City. Where did the idea come from? What drove it? You said that it was as things changed at home.
Yep.
The 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, Jonny being offshore, starts to kind of work less for you as a family.
Yeah. So I think originally it was 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, and then it used to be kind of 2 weeks on, 3 weeks off, but with the same salary. So you need to pivot. You need to kind of like sort of hustle and work harder. So there was an opportunity for Jonny to like just go out for a day or so with another scaffolding company. So when he would be home, he would just go out and just maybe work for the day and help out. And that was really good. And we used to encourage him. I was like, you should do this yourself, do it yourself. And never really thought of it. And then Jonny was offered an opportunity. Someone was going off to travel and they had an O3 plate van and a little bit of material. And Jonny came home after having done like a day's work and said, this is what's been offered. And we just said, let's go for it.
So to buy it and start doing it yourself.
I think at that point, it was like 6,000, was it £5,500?
Oh, right, okay.
That's what started our business.
So that's what started it. And then, so this is the bit that I really like about this story. Jonny's then still going 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off.
So at that point, so that's just literally where we've just bought the material. And then within a week, we said to Mark, give us half the money, we need you, come in. Because Jonny knew that he wanted to work alongside Mark. And they've been friends since they were teenagers and are like really close. And
both worked offshore together.
Both worked offshore together, but on different platforms.
Cool.
And what that means, they would go to different places, but their pattern of work like overlapped.
Yep.
So Jonny would be home for 2 weeks, Mark would be home for 2 weeks within a month, and there'd be a week where they would be together back. So I had someone home all the time, but it was only one person, 2 people here for 1 week within a month.
Right, okay. And it allowed them to still work.
Yep.
So that
to grow the business.
Yeah. And also then go offshore to work and kind of maintain that stability.
Jonny worked offshore, and we'd started the business September 2014. Jonny worked offshore for a further 6 months, doing that back and forward. And I think Mark was closer to a year. And that was great because in this, so the kind of first commercial project that we were successful in getting, that's when Jonny left offshore because we needed someone to drive that. But behind the scenes, we needed Mark to set everything up, and that's Mark's forte. Right. He was kind of like setting all the systems, the processing, just setting us up, pricing things. And so he would do that in offshore hours, where we'd work in the morning and do all his work kind of by 11, and then for the rest of the day, and bear in mind he's not going home, and Mark has got an incredible work ethic to the point of extreme. So I know that it wouldn't have finished at 5. He would have been continuing till kind of 10 o'clock at night.
This is when he was back home?
Oh no, that was when he was working offshore. Yeah, he was probably doing that when he's back. No, when he's back home, I had him at a job working.
Right. Okay.
So there was no days off.
Then, right?
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. So like a lot of the trade-off for the intensity of the work offshore is the fact that it's 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. But you were probably coming like going offshore for a break after Kirsty had you out. Like brilliant. But you said it's you at a kitchen table trying to get the work in.
Yep.
For the guys when they're back home.
Yep.
So can you talk to us about that process? Who do you phone? What do you do? Because there's people who want to do that. They go, I want to start a business. I know that I need to go and get some work in. Where do you go? How do you start? Who do you speak to? What did you do?
So this is where the eSpark experience really sort of come in, and so like the market research is like, right, where can we get, because it was all about fast money as well, and so it was, well, where can we get quick work? And so originally it was put it out on social media, let people know what we were doing, and then I had written up a business introduction, and when I look back, I probably still have it. It looked like it had been typed in the 1950s, and that was only 10 years ago, and I was really excited. I utilised everything that I'd done before. So I told in this business introduction the sort of the length of time that in work experience that the guys had. So I say, there's 30 years worth of trade industry experience. I've been in eSpark, and I name dropped that this was founded by Tom Hunter and Willie Hockey and Anne Gloag, and I put all of that in a business introduction, and I literally just sat in a coffee shop or at the kitchen table, and I just sent it to roofers, small construction companies, and I probably targeted them first. And then once we got a couple of jobs, and then I just put those jobs out on social media. So when you look back, I've not removed anything from our social media. So if you look back kind of 8-9 years ago, you'll see the type of work that we're doing. And then you'll see the growth of the work.
I sent you a picture of like one of your first fans that I'd went right back on your social media and seen one of the first jobs. It was like a wee tiny scaffolding compared to what you guys have got up now.
I think that van also had 3 F's on it instead of 2. So scaffolding. We made some silly errors.
What was the story? You said there was a story from the early days about building a scaffold in the dark.
They built. So this is when it was just literally Jonny and Mark, and they would just work until the job was done. And we talk about like how many hours work, but it was also so much fun. Like they felt so alive at that time.
We need to fact check that. Was it fun?
He loves it. He does. He speaks about it all the time.
Like that. Yeah.
But I know, obviously I know my husband, and I know when there's points in the business that are like stressful, they're fun, and that was a great time.
Right.
Like when they were on the job, on the tools, building jobs in the dark, and they had head torches. Now, I would not obviously promote that now. And our staff don't do that now. We have Ryan, our health and safety, to oversee that.
Ryan's here. So Ryan makes sure that doesn't happen now.
Yes.
Right. Then you got the first big job. So, Boroughmuir High School?
Yep.
You need to talk us through how you go about getting that job, how you tender for it, how does that work? And then we're going to talk about the self-promotion of that job.
Okay. So, it was, again, an introduction through someone actually on site that Jonny and Mark had met. So we put a price in. At that point, we'd not really priced anything commercially. So we needed sort of to pull in a few kind of people round the kitchen table just to help us price it. So Mark and Jonny had priced that, put it in, and then Jonny went offshore. And then the site manager got us in, or it was maybe the QS actually, to talk money. And Mark and I went in, just ourselves. They didn't even have us sit down at a table. I remember standing up, and they literally just battled us with the price and just knocked us down. But we were leaving that site with that job. And it got to the point where I was kind of saying to Mark, like, enough's enough. Like, we've lowered the price enough. Thankfully, it really worked in our favour because there was a lot of jobs in there that needed to go up and down multiple times. So it ended up being really profitable.
Brilliant.
But
right,
if it stuck to the plan, it would have finished us.
Really? That bad?
It was, we would have given it away to get that job.
So tell me why. So it's about getting the branding on the building, it's being able to kind of break into that.
I think probably,
or was it just getting excited, blinded by the lights?
Probably getting a little bit excited, but also Jonny went to Boroughmuir High School.
Aye.
So there was a little bit of, I want this job. This needs to be the first commercial job. You know, having left school with no qualifications, didn't really like any of his teachers, didn't really go, set off alarms, put smoke bombs on. So to get that one as our first commercial project was just off the chart excitement. And I don't think anything probably, there's maybe one that's maybe on par with that, but that first big job is what's really exciting.
What's the other one?
Winning the Historic Scotland contract.
I was about to say it's got to be like Edinburgh Castle, Stirling Castle, all these so that's the. So what year was Boroughmuir, and what year was Historic Scotland?
So, the Boroughmuir was 2015, 6 months in, and Historic Scotland was 3 years ago. Roughly, but we had actually gone in for the tender in year 2 or 3 as well. We actually came second, which thankfully we didn't get. We needed the infrastructure, and we needed.
You said that if you'd won it previously, you just wouldn't have been able to deliver it.
We wouldn't have been able to deliver a service.
You mentioned that you were pulled in by the QS to talk numbers. And then when we were having a wee bit of a meeting before, just to kind of run through everything, I said, are you happy to talk about numbers? And you rhymed off your turnover for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Can you do it now?
So year 1, 87,000, year 2, 240, year 3, 360, year 4, 640, year 5, 940, year 6, 960, year 7, which was COVID, was 1.4, year 8 was 2.4, year 8, so it was 2.4, then year 8 was 3.3, and then our last year was just shy of 6 million.
That's incredible. Even just remembering it. So there's a couple of big jumps in there, but there was one that you said was really disappointing. Was it 940 and 960?
Yeah, when
'Cause
we
it's
got
jumping
the
and jumping and
940
jumping, and then
or
it
the
kind of-
950, I just wanted to break like 1 million. And I know, listen, it's all turnover, it's all relative, it's about profit, it's about, you know, like everything else.
Yeah.
But I think for us, is just breaking the 1 million was just what we wanted to do. Like we just like every year I would set goals. I got Mark and Jonny into it for every year I would set intentions for the year.
Yep.
How many staff, how many vans, the clients that we'd want to work with, our net profit, our gross profit, and I'd send mine. I wrote one year, and then I sent it to them a year later, and they were like, oh my God, it was so accurate.
Really? 'Cause
And
you've
then
done it. Brilliant.
we'd done it, and then they started doing it as well.
That's really
We've not done it for a couple of years though.
And there's another. So there's a couple of big jumps in there as well.
Yep.
So COVID was one of them.
Yeah.
Does that have a big positive impact on business, or was it nothing to do with COVID? What was the...
No, it was nothing to do with COVID,
Right.
because obviously we were down tools at that point, but not as long as other industries. But we gone from kind of 950 to 1.3, and we were due to do an even more amazing year that year.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, with COVID, and as it affected everybody, so you know we didn't do quite as well, but there was still like momental growth.
Yeah. One of the things that's really different about your business to a lot of other businesses is the kind of owner structure or the kind of managerial structure between you, Mark, and Jonny. Obviously, you and Jonny being a husband and wife, and Mark being a third director in there. One of the questions I wanted to ask you was, what happens when you three don't agree on something? Like, so has there ever been a situation where you and Jonny would agree but Mark doesn't, or Jonny and Mark agree and you don't? You
All
said
the time.
that's more often. It's more often that they two agree and you
it's
don't.
Normally they meet first and then they work on me. And I'm aware that they're doing it all the time. But I've now got Ryan. So it's funny because there's different things. So we've all got 3 different, very, very different personalities.
Yeah.
And Jonny is probably a worrier, and he likes people to work for City Access to have a really positive experience. And that is at the forefront of who Jonny is.
Yep.
And Mark gets on with the job. Mark just wants left alone to do his job. And where
I see an example of this.
Uh-huh.
Where you wrote on social media about the fact that Mark had been running a boxing gym and like getting involved in the boxing gym for months and months and months, and branded the whole thing up City Access, and you didn't even know about it.
No, so we found out that City Access were sponsoring a boxing club in local to where we are, and we had sponsored tracksuits. We'd sponsored a full ring.
I'll put a photo. Jack will flash a photo up here on the stream of what it looked like, because it's amazing. The branding's class.
Yeah, but City Access did not sponsor it. He did it himself. He was like, it's fine. And at that, when I found out, I was like, Mark, get reimbursed for that. You've 100% will support whatever you want to support, but you're not financially paying for it.
No.
But that's just Mark. He's just like, yeah, it's all right. Mark and Jonny, and I've said this to you, like I'm very protective because they are such kind people, and so loyal, hardworking, kind. And obviously, I know that Jonny does everything for his family, but I see it on the other side. And I've asked, well, I didn't ask, but Mark's daughter, Erin, and his wife, Mandy, are here. And I wanted I'm so often the face of the business because they're not interested in putting themselves out there.
You said you're the face of the business, but you also told me that you were cringing that there was 3 pictures of you on the city Instagram.
Yeah.
So you're not
recently. Yeah.
She was like, "Oh my God, there's 3 pictures of me on the Instagram grid. I need to get more stuff that's not me on it."
I don't mind every so often, but then I don't want it to be look like it's my show, because it's very much not.
No,
so that's where kind of to be able to speak, and Mark keeps his work very separate from his family, which is I really respect that. Jonny and I speak about business at 11:45 at night.
Yeah.
So with I'll kind of see Mandy. I was like, "Oh, have you heard this?" She's like, "No." Because Mark just...
Did Mandy not think that it was just the 3 of you when you had 12 employees?
Oh yeah, no. So she might not remember this, but we had a conversation and we were speaking. We had entered an awards for the rolling scaffold at Boroughmuir High School, and I'd spoke to Mandy. I was like, "Would you like to come down to London and stuff?" She's like, "Oh yeah, all right. Oh, this is quite professional now," and I think she was just thought for a while that it was just Jonny and Mark just floating about in this 03 van. And I was like, no, but that is Mark. It is that he makes everything about, it makes other people feel really important when you're with them all the time. And if you've been in Mark's company, you'll understand that.
Yeah, totally. Is there a bad cop?
Me, at all times. No, I'm a realist.
So you need to tell the story about the trip to London. And Jonny and Mark in the foyer, the hotel. The bank office.
Contract that we'd won was obviously Boroughmuir High School, and I knew that I needed to really market this to get other commercial projects, because that would be the way that we would grow the business. So they had come up with an amazing concept of Scotland's first rolling scaffold, and if we put that out there, no doubt there'll be another scaffolding company that says that we weren't, but I'm saying that we were. So they had a rolling scaffold, and I'd met someone somewhere down in London, and he contacted me and said, "I'm a videographer, this is what I do, and I'll come up from London," and I think it was £900, and he flew up from London and he filmed Mark using the rolling scaffold, and then he edited it all at the airport, and then he gave us this, and this meant that we had this to showcase everything, but also because this isn't the type of job that you would do all the time, it gave you an opportunity to show other clients what it was. So he came up, and we used that video to then enter an award, and we went down to London. We were successful, and we're up against, in our year 2, we were up against Hilti and a bomb disposal unit, where there was a hope in hell we were ever going to win this. But we had to go down and present the video. And Mark, there's a picture of Mark and Jonny actually on our Instagram, and they're on their laptop. And Mark and Jonny, they worked the whole way down. I kept saying, it was Mark and I that was going in to do the presentation. And I said, "Have you been practicing? Please practice, please practice." And he was like, yeah, I'm just getting this quote in. I'm just sending an invoice. So we got down, and I knew that he hadn't practiced. He's like, "I'll be fine. I know the job. It's all right."
He's nodding away.
So we arrived in the most kind of swanky, gorgeous offices, and it's all glass. And outside there was street food, and they both got kebabs, and they sat and ate kebabs with open, with paper, in this beautiful, I was. But I get really angry. So I was so angry. We went up, and I think Jonny waited outside, and then Mark and I were starting the presentation, and Mark was just kind of like, "Yeah, this is this," and we put the video on, and the video presentation was upside down on the TV. We hadn't checked, and it was just, we travelled all the way down to London to showcase this. It just was embarrassing from the get-go, but listen, you live and learn.
Brilliant. One of the things you said to me was that culture is tested in a crisis. And one of the questions that we always like to ask people about, we like to talk about all the good things and all the, how great the growth's been over the years. But I always ask people about, is there a day that you go, that was the worst day? And you had the day, the worst day.
Yes. So this day I was walking our dog, and I think it was July 24th last year, and it is the call that anyone that works in height just never wants to have. And obviously it can be a dangerous industry, but thankfully we've got kind of robust health and safety procedures.
Yep.
But I got a call that said that someone had fallen, and we didn't know at that point how serious it was. And unfortunately, the guy that fell, Darren, he didn't hook on. So all of the health and safety measures that we have to take were presented, signed everything off, but unfortunately just on that day just took a shortcut.
Just human error.
Yeah. And if you know anyone, we'd actually anyone that knows him as well, he's normally so safe, like all the time, because he would never want to hurt anyone else.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, he'd fallen, and at that point we didn't know how bad it was, and it just spiraled, and it just went from bad to worse, like, within 30 minutes, an hour, and we didn't know if he was going to make it. And Jonny went through to the hospital in Glasgow and was met with his friend, and he was met with his friend and his partner, and her name is Kirsty. And at that point, Jonny knew kind of how serious it was. Yeah. And within a week, he'd had 6 operations. He was in hospital through in Glasgow for 4 weeks, and his partner didn't drive. And she was reliant on, family members. He's got an amazing family, and they all sort of rallied around him. But that, for us as a business, of what is going to happen, absolutely. Like, I couldn't sleep. My anxiety was just through the roof. But just thinking of his children, of his partner, and I spoke with her kind of most days, but didn't want to impose as well. This is their family time, but we want to make sure that he's all right. But just speaking to her throughout that time was, she was just so distraught.
He came back to work.
This is just unbelievable. But he actually came back to work 11 months after his accident to the day last month.
Right.
Thankfully, we are in a size and in a position, because he's not come back as a scaffolder at the moment. Yeah.
You've created a role for him.
Yeah, we've created a role for Darren, and he's doing really well. And yesterday, we went out together. Ryan had created us a toolbox talk, and we went out together. And he, isn't used to public speaking, and he did his toolbox talk all about his accident to 11 of his colleagues. Right. And it was just like, I left yesterday just like on top of the world, just seeing him there telling them all about it was amazing.
I'm delighted that he's there to tell them.
Yeah, and they were so supportive, and really, like, just really backed him up. But you could see his confidence grow, and him sharing that will help so many people. And our client actually asked if he would share the story with them, with their full site. So
brilliant! I'm not surprised.
Yeah,
that's amazing story. The culture that you guys have built within the business, like away from obviously the health and safety and the like that side of the business is really important. You've also built an amazing team with a brilliant culture. You've got a really your apprentice program's amazing. Like, can you talk to us a bit about the because that's a big part of your role, is that
yes.
right now, the size you're at now?
Yep.
Like, kind of maintaining that culture.
Yes, I think you said earlier, is I'd read it somewhere, is like your culture is tested in a time of crisis, and that in that specific time for us, it's not about, we spoke about this, but it's not about like having pizzas on a Friday. Yep. It's I would love for us all to go out on a Saturday and do team building, but people want to be with their families essentially. However, we have got a fantastic team, and we've got a core team of labour staff. We obviously work in construction where turnover can change. Yep. So, but though the culture that we've created is just sort of inbred, and that's probably come from all three of us, but then the extended team. So within the office, you've got Daryl, you've got Ryan. Everybody contributes to that, and I think having the right people in our business is really important. And the culture with regards to the apprentices, we, a team of 55 at the moment. I think we have 10 apprentices at all different stages, and I'm incredibly passionate about our apprentices. I've obviously got children. I know what my children need, and I've also been that little kid that needs someone to take them under their wing. Yep. So if I can create, along with the team, something that can help impact and make a positive influence on a 17-year-old boy's life, then that's what I'm here to do. So we do kind of our savings scheme for the boys, trying to get them to think about just like looking after their money. I'm just touching on all the kind of neurodiversity sort of area, and getting them to consider like the way that they learn. The majority of construction workers are kinesthetic learners, so they're practical learners. Yep. And that's not traditional at school. It's all, visual and auditory learning. So if we can try and just show them what they can do, it just hopefully will build some confidence. And there's a program that we will follow.
We were talking on the podcast recently about like how businesses think that culture is throwing pizzas and beers at their team.
Yep.
And that's just not the way that you would operate, or that's not your belief of, you think there's a lot more to culture. You don't drink. You're 20 years sober this year.
I'm 20 years sober in October.
You talk to us about that, and like the difference. You said like things like corporate invites and stuff like that. That's all like all comes into the fact that you're a woman running this business.
So, so Jonny and Mark were playing at Glen Eagles on Monday, and I didn't get an invite. But I don't really get invited to any not networking, but any sort of entertainment days.
This is a huge thing. This is a massive thing as a woman running this business. You said that people will come up to you, Mark, and Jonny and ask Jonny and Mark how's the business.
Obviously, I've not been in that situation with Mark, but with Jonny and I are maybe popped into town, and it's generally a female actually. Right. It's not a male, because I think sort of probably men that especially work in this industry can see the value that I add. Yeah. But if we're having a chat with someone, and then they'll literally their eyes will lock to Jonny and say, "How is business?"
How does that make you feel?
Well, I tell them.
Oh, do you?
No, I do. I think it's really important that I tell them. I said, our business is fine. Yeah. I've done that so many times. And Mark will also kind of go, oh, here she goes. Like,
right. Yeah. I think that's quite right.
Well, I feel like it's like, it annoys me that it's another woman saying it to Jonny. Give me a little bit of respect. Now
100%.
That's not the case with everyone. Now, of course it's not. But, there's I've earned my place here. And that's where, you said there's 60% of, women that,
in the room tonight,
yes.
And on that, you also have 2 daughters who see you in business.
Yes.
And your daughter, Sophia is quite entrepreneurial, and she's in the room tonight.
Very entrepreneurial.
Can you tell us about Sophia's entrepreneurial encounters?
Am I allowed? No. Which one?
What one? See, there you go. You've answered the question for us, Sophia. Can I tell them what one? Well, there's 2 here that I've got. So I've got that you are a prime reseller. You were. And that and the samples of the aftershaves and deodorant.
Yeah. So Sophia's really hard working, and I will not take all the credit for that. Her dad is also, they love to kind of wheel and deal bits and pieces, and they get great ideas together. But Sophia works part-time. At the moment on the holiday, she's working 20 hours and loves it. But when she was 14, we went to America, and if you've got kids, you'll remember Prime. And you remember, if your kid wanted it, you were paying a premium for it. So Sophia was in Walmart, and she asked if she could put all her clothes from her suitcase into her rucksack, and she filled a suitcase of Prime. And by the time she was selling them, I think on the way in the airport, she'd set up her own eBay, because I don't have an eBay account, and she'd set up her own eBay account, and the majority of them were sold by the time we kind of landed back in Edinburgh. And she was sending them all over the place, and I think she made £250 from that suitcase of Prime. Right. But her stock, she'd borrowed the money from us. I think it came to £110, but she dropped her phone and she smashed her phone. So I took £90 and she had to pay for her phone. So I think she made £40.
Brilliant. And then samples of aftershaves and perfumes.
So she likes to get free samples, and she'll often tell people that she has a marketing assignment at school. And she has got, I think you have made maybe £400 from that. So all from free samples.
So get the free samples from expensive aftershaves.
She knows her brands now. Right. So she likes the Creed is a good one now for reselling, and she knows she loves getting reviews. She's got a lot of good reviews, and she's using that. And she's got some good ideas. So go ahead and get the
free samples, sell them on eBay.
Yep.
That's amazing. Brilliant. Sophia, you'll be on this podcast shortly. A couple of other really interesting things that you told me about was some of your competitors. So you said, and I said we were going to touch on it, was you reach out to everyone. You really try to kind of use the value, your network, to try and grow your business. And you reached out to a competitor, and somebody once said something to you that's never left you. Yeah.
So I've shared this before, but I reached out to competitors, I reached out to potential clients, but just to kind of bounce ideas. That idea, is maybe alien in construction. Not now, because I've got some great contacts, not in Edinburgh as in a scaffolding company, but maybe in London. But I reached out and they had a conversation. I was in the gym car park and we were just building the business at this point, and this person said out his car window, is the jobs that you want is the shit I throw away. Yeah.
And now you'd say you're a serious competitor to that business now.
Yes.
Brilliant. Amazing. You also you brought someone into your business from a competitor.
Yep.
And you tried to connect with them on LinkedIn after they came into your business. Can you tell us that story?
So, yes, someone came into the business, and I tried to kind of, we were about to sort of announce and welcome them to the business, and I was like, right, but if you add me, I can't find you on LinkedIn, because they didn't really use it. And their profile picture at that point was them in their graduation cloak. And so it was been a few years before, and they tried to find me, couldn't find me. And I was like, have you blocked me from LinkedIn? And he said, I didn't set my LinkedIn up, but their previous employer had set his LinkedIn up.
The previous employer had set up the LinkedIn and had gone on and actively blocked you,
just
so
me.
That their staff couldn't see you and the stuff that you're doing.
So he tells me.
He maybe did block you. You mentioned, one of the things that you said to me was about, so we were talking about the fact that you've got two girls and that they see you running this business, and the fact that obviously Sophia's an entrepreneur in the making. Do you think that that's, how important is that to you, that they see that?
Yeah.
One of the things that Ryan McCabe said on our podcast, absolute legend who was on our podcast, said that when he exited, or he sold part of his business to the point where he was financially stable enough that he probably didn't need to go to work. He could say, right, okay, I'm going to patch it now. But he thought it was really important that his 3B boys seen him going to work every day. Mm-hmm. So, that, you said to me, was really important to you as well.
That is really important to me, and I listened to Ryan's podcast, which was amazing. But yeah, I think there's two elements of that. Is I want my girls to look at me drive the business forward that has been run by Mark and Jonny, all three of us driving it forward. And I want them to see what I do, but I also don't want that to be to the detriment of them. Yeah. So we spoke about the juggle of being a mum and being in your 40s. I've got teenagers now, so they need me in a very different way to how they need me when they're 2 and 3 and 4 and 5.
You said to me, if you think it's difficult with toddlers, wait till you get teenagers.
Yeah, emotionally they need you.
Totally.
They need their mum, and they come first, and City Access comes second.
Has that? I know obviously where your daughter's in the room. Has that ever? Do you ever feel like you've failed in that?
So very much at the beginning of the business, and I know that Jonny's, I've never asked Mark, but Jonny at different times to me, thankfully, has experienced this. But when we were driving the business at the beginning, constantly, it just was like 24/7. I felt at the weekend I didn't know what to do with myself.
Yeah.
I really liked the structure of Monday to Friday, and then at the weekend I didn't really kind of like know what to do with them. So they would go to soft plays and they would go to trampoline, but I was on the laptop.
Yeah.
I wasn't really present sometimes. And they would be, you know, picked up sometimes by Auntie Haley from school. We all kind of worked together to kind of to help.
And I think there's a part of that's great for kids to see. And
Yeah.
it's getting that balance right. The fact that the kids understand what we do and why we do it, I think is a really good thing, but it's that, like, making sure that you get that balance right. McKaylee, who was on the podcast, who's the founder of Severinos, he's got this photo that's really striking. It's like his son, like, kind of sitting on his arm while he's on his phone. And he talks about this, and it's quite a hard-hitting story of he's seen that photo and he's like made a huge change and was like, went away for like a month skiing, just him and his son, no phone, like, because of the impact that when he looked at that photo, he was like, the person on that phone is getting 90% of my attention, and he's sitting there wanting the rest of it.
I'm probably still a bit guilty of that.
Yeah, I think everybody in the room will be able to relate to it to a certain extent. I think it's probably normal for people to feel like they're not getting that balance right. But that's why I wanted to kind of, when you said that City Access comes second, just say, like, how often do you feel like that's?
No, I think I think maybe 95% of the time City Access does come second.
Yeah.
However, if we've had a near fatality,
of course,
City Access
huge.
Needs to, you know, I need to put that, make that at the top of my priorities. What I would say is one of the things that I noticed is more so when the girls were younger, is having conversations in the car. So being on the phone and maybe speaking about something we had nearly lost. It was our first yard that we'd bought, and the sale was maybe about to fall through. And I remember, 2 or 3 weeks later, Sophia was really worried about that. And I was almost, by just discussing things in the car, I didn't realise she was like soaking it all up like a sponge.
Definitely.
So I changed that. And then also now, and this might be laziness, but when I go home, I get into my pajamas right away.
Yeah.
And I'd read that somewhere as like almost you're shedding your persona
100%.
of who you were in the day. Because if I keep active, like workingly active, I do tend to, I don't stop.
So see, like when I went from like COVID, and it was like going from an office driving home, and that drive home you went like back into home mode, and then went to like working to the kitchen table, and it was like we come at like 5:30 where you would normally shut off. You didn't shut off.
Yeah.
Maybe have your dinner and the laptop would still be sitting open. I started getting in the car and going to drive after work from home, like literally getting in the car and going to drive, because it felt like I was like commuting home or driving home.
That's a great
to kind of
idea.
try and switch off. But that for you, putting your pajamas on goes, right, that's me done for the day. That's a really big one. And like you said, taking calls in the car, and the fact that, like, was it Sophia you said that?
Yeah.
It was like kind of starting to
Francesca
worry about
wouldn't have cared.
No. We've got a guest coming on the podcast, Jenny from Sunshine Communications, who told a story. I think she put it on LinkedIn, so I'm pretty sure she'll be happy for me to share it. But our daughter basically asked her what's wrong, and started to see, but I'll let her tell the story on the podcast of what her daughter done. But that whole like kind of the fact that they are taking in what we are doing and
taking
and
it all in.
see it all in.
And the positive as well, though.
Yeah.
Like the positive is,
definitely.
they're seeing, and they're exactly as Ryan shared, is that you want your children to be able to stand on their own 2 feet, and especially having girls. I want them to, it's so important. I'm getting to an age where, like friends maybe are no longer with their husbands, and you need to be with someone that gives you an opportunity to be who you are, but also for you to be financially independent. And that's what I want for my girls. We don't know what the future holds.
Brilliant. Another balance that I think you need to strike all the time, one of the things that you say is really important to you is being nice, leading with the heart and doing the right thing. But then you also said that you are bad cop, and that sometimes your role requires you to be quite ruthless. How do you balance that? The way that you want to lead, the way that you are as a person, and the way that you kind of run your business, but also you need to be that ruthless bad cop every so often.
I don't mind making tough decisions, like at all. And I don't mind being the bad cop when I know that it is necessary. What we do as a business and as 3 individuals and our extended team is give people multiple opportunities. And that can be with a client, like kind of also is, I remember kind of having a client years and years ago, and Jonny would be running around ragged, and then, you know, maybe there's a pricing exercise, maybe not winning the work, but they've actually got you running around. They're not actually maybe that much of a profitable client, but also having to let go them as well. And when you are a bit of a people pleaser, that's difficult to do, but just difficult decisions, just sometimes if we're having the same conversations over and over again, I just will put the procedures in place to manage that. But we all do it. We all do it at different times. So I'll maybe be a little bit softer on apprentices, because I've got a closer connection. Jonny will maybe say that, oh, it's easy for you to say you don't, you know, I'm maybe not understanding what it's like to work in the rain, and you know, because I don't understand what it's like to be a scaffolder, and I'll never pretend that I do. Yeah.
You ever tried it? Never been to?
No.
One other thing that you said to me that I think is really important in business, and probably something that I'm not so good at. When you said talking about money, you've never shied away from like picking up the phone to someone who is owe you money, or talking about money with your team, with your financial director, your management team, your customers.
Yep.
And you said like just picking up the phone, not hiding behind emails, not shying away from it, and just kind of taking the bull by the horns.
I think maybe what I was referring to is at the beginning of
your words were, I love it.
Well, I do. It's like a challenge sometimes, but I remember like at the beginning of the business, and if you do have quite a kind nature, it's kind of like you listen to an excuse from someone, and I'm like, this is excuses. I want my money. And Mark would be kind of like, oh, they're going to like pay on X day. He has no problem with that now. But I used to kind of phone and say to a client, as you know, we've got our VAT return tomorrow. I would plead poverty in order to get paid. And I also understand that the loudest voice sometimes gets paid first.
Yeah, definitely.
So we've been really fortunate, you know, as the years have gone on, that we've got brilliant clients, and we've worked with a lot of them for a long, long time. But I shared with you, there was someone that has not a great reputation, and has since, you know, fled Edinburgh, and he was due us £500. And I think at one point we were going to write it off, and I was like, no, we're not. I want the money. And so I think he'd blocked Mark and Jonny's numbers, but he didn't have mine. So I phoned, and he said, oh, I can't believe you're chasing me for 500 quid. And I was like, well, I'll chase you for a fiver. I want paid. And he paid. So it sometimes works to be persistent.
Huge. That's a really big lesson for everyone to learn. There was a brilliant story we never told, if everyone's all right with me, like jumping in with this one, about you borrowing money from, can you tell that story about your exam?
So I used to sort of run up parking tickets when I was about 18, 19, and my grandma lived in Brunsfield, and it was just beside the Golf Tavern on the Glengale Terrace. So I would always nip in, and by the time I got out, there'd be a parking ticket. So I think I was about 19, and I was due about £230 worth of parking tickets, and I didn't have it. So I knew my grandma would be really angry. So I asked her cleaner. And she had a guest house, and the cleaner had a great relationship with her. And I said, oh, can I borrow this money? And she said, let me think about it. And then she messaged me and said, right, I'll leave the money in the laundry room, but you need to pay it back every Friday at £20 a week. And I was like, yeah, no problem, that's fine. And so sometimes I would forget to go, and I'd get a message, but a really random time. She was like, you never left the money. Will you remember to leave it? Because I'm coming back in tomorrow. And so eventually I paid her back, and it was just, we never ever spoke of it. And then about 10 years later, my grandma said, you borrowed the money, but it wasn't my grandma's cleaner. my grandma had given the money to the cleaner, and every week she would go down and
She
check.
was monitoring to
She
see
was
if you'd
checking
paid the money back
to have
to her.
paid the money back. Yeah.
Why do you think that was? Why do you think
Well, to teach me a lesson, and not betray the cleaner's trust.
Right.
She was really loyal like that.
I was saying to you, my nana's 96, and she's got
brilliant.
a book, and it's like a widow's pension that she's had for years and years, that if you need money, you can basically borrow from her. When I was 18, I'd bought a car, and I was trying to insure it. It was £2,000 to insure it, or 1,200 quid if you paid it up front. I was like, I wish I had 1,200 quid. And my dad says, go and ask your nana, she'll get you the 1,200 quid and you can pay her £100 a month. And I went in and she had this book, and there was 19 of us, all my cousins, and it had everybody's name written on the front of the book, and a couple of them were scored out. If you missed a payment on the money that you borrowed from her, she scored you out and you never got it again. As long as you paid her back, you could then go and I've only ever borrowed it once.
Yeah.
There was a couple of my cousins that were scored out a couple of times.
She was like that too.
Can everyone just say a huge thanks to Kirsty for sharing her story? Amazing. Thank you. If there are any questions, pop your hand up, fire away. Richard.
Yeah, Kirsty, that was amazing. Very inspiring story. What's your vision for the business over the next 5 to 10 years?
So probably the next 5 years would be, and this has been my ongoing vision for the last couple of years, is to allow the business to fully operate without Mark, Jonny and myself. And actually it does operate, I create jobs for myself. It does operate without Jonny and I, but Mark, we need to kind of pull him away from his laptop. So we've got Ryan, who's here tonight, who is now our technical director, and he very much is leading the business with us. So I think it's probably just continuing to have, organic growth at a rate that's manageable, but also that the business fully operates without all three of us if we wanted that.
Do you think you would want it?
Oh, and some days I was like, I'm leaving this place. I hate it. And then on other days, like when I come back a holiday, I'm so motivated.
Oh, you text me on Monday, I was just back from my holiday, and she's like, are you delighted to be back? I was like, ugh. She's like, I love coming back from holiday. It's like, do you?
I just love that first day. You
have all the ideas and everything that builds up. And
I sometimes wake up
right
in the morning, I'm like, I wonder what exciting thing is going to happen today. Like I genuinely think that. And it could be like an email. I don't know. My grandma told me that before she died is that she would send people in my way. And I'm like, I wonder who she's going to send today.
Brilliant. Any other questions in the room?
Oh.
Hi, Emma. What a brilliant question. So Emma's asking, as a mum of 2 young girls who has taken a bit of time out of work, what advice would you give to a mum of 2 girls like yourself who wants to get back into business?
So you'll never get your time back with your girls, like never. And the ages, and I know you, Emma, so I know the ages of your girls. And if I could do it all again, if I'm being totally honest, I would have my time with my girls. However, I understand that not everyone's in that situation. So if it was an opportunity, I would just do what you're doing. You're doing really good. So yeah, Emma is dipping her toe into sort of female business events, and you're really entrepreneurial and using your network, and that's what you are doing, and you're having fun while you're doing it. So if you have got opportunities where that you can make a little bit of money, and you're doing that with network marketing and having a good time while you're doing it, but all of those little milestone moments that you might not think that you're making a lot of money doing it, you're getting experience, and that all leads to bigger things. So don't underestimate probably what you're doing just now.
Brilliant, great question, great answer. Thank you. Anyone else? One more question, Andy.
Andy, Kirsty, that was fascinating. I was just thinking about your kids, and I've had some experience with the construction sector, and it's a tough industry, as you know more than anybody else. Would you encourage your kids to work in the construction sector if they fancied it?
Well, it's one of the biggest industries in Britain and is needed for the infrastructure everywhere. And there's so many different opportunities. So, from a from a QS, from owning your own business to, you know, being a scaffolder, I think I would. And I think that the industry is also changing. We have to be more safety conscious, and we also have to make changes. And I think I would say that we're fairly forward thinking with that, with regards to mental health, creating an environment that is maybe on par with maybe working in a corporate environment. And that's where that I've hopefully kind of maybe brought some of those positive aspects into our business. But I think the industry is changing, and it's changing fast. I think that it's, unfortunately, and we spoke about this, in our industry, CITB are only putting through 90 scaffolders a year for nearly all of Scotland. So the opportunities could be there if there was more training. So I've got the last recruitment drive that we did, there were about 70 people that applied, and there's hardly any training spaces. So I need to kind of push CITB for more training.
Right.
But yeah, I would.
You would. Mm-hmm. Can everyone give Kirsty another big round of applause, please? That was amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you. Brilliant. Thank you very much for tuning into the Business Playbook. If you've seen some value in this podcast, please share it with someone who would also get some value from it. Please subscribe, let us know in the comments what you thought, and connect with Kirsty on LinkedIn. Brilliant. Thanks very much. Thanks for tuning in. Goodbye.